Okay, guys, so here we are. Keep going on the 3-5 cross of the Sleeping Phoenix. With the 3, you change the game entirely because the interesting thing about the 3 is that it brings out another level of concern in the genes. We saw that at the first line level, that the genetic drive to just simply reproduce is the same. Just make more. That will be the answer. And then we get to the second line theme, and we saw that you can sort do things out with kind of. There's stuff that you can do with it. You can get people to be able to like each other enough that it can make relationships something that seem valuable. It's one of the things that the family therapist is going to ask the couple that's having that relationship with each other, that it's a dilemma. Or your friends, when they say, no, we're not friends. And of course, it makes difference in the quality of your relationship. And we all know that, how different it is when you have somebody in your life that takes on that friendship role. But when you get to the third line genetics not even concerned with making more. It is concerned with making the best. Think about this as an example. The poor disenfranchised parents who have a new baby, and what they want for the baby is that the baby can do better than them, can have a better life than them. That baby that won't be failure they've been. That baby will be a success, that it will make them proud, blah blah blah. That's when you get to the third line. The third line says, I've got all these problems in my life. Things go wrong. Everything else goes wrong. But maybe the only thing that I can do in my life is that really creative is the child I can produce. And that means that I need to find the right genetic material and that it will raise the standard of my genetic material. Now remember, what I told you about the open G and the open ego and about my culture, materialism is so much part of the bonding program. And here, one of the things you see is that built into us genetically, that every man and every woman is genetically not simply looking for a mate, but is looking for the best possible mate. Now, we already know in a way in which we're defined biologically is that men have a deep drive to be promiscuous, in other words, to spread their seeds. Do you realize that approximately one fifth of all the people who are alive right now on Earth are all direct descendants of Genghis Khan? Isn't that incredible? He had a habit of impregnating the women of his enemies, and he would do that daily. It's estimated that in his lifetime he impregnated, I'm not talking about making love to, no, that he impregnated over 10,000 women. And today, one fifth of all of humanity is a direct descendant of Genghis Khan. Genetically, he did really well after all. This is the male archetype. It's the male archetype. Spread your seed. Now, the female archetype is get to the best male and not to care about whether they stay or not. We have a huge myth about women. My favorite is the aroma experiment. When you fall in love with somebody, the one thing you're most deeply connected to them is their aroma, and particularly a woman. So much of the way in which a female reproductive genetic system operates, particularly at the lymphatic system, is that your genes are actually sniffing out the right genes. They're sniffing them out. And you know the smell of your lover. Oh boy, do you know this smell? So they've done an experiment. They will take a woman and they will fill a room with men, and they will blindfold her, and she will go down that line and she will sniff out her lover. It's like 99.6 times accurate. They smell them out immediately. Now they waited in the experiment until members of the test group. There were many women who participated, and some of them became pregnant. And then they do the same experiment. So the pregnant female comes into the room with her man who made her baby that she could smell in a dark subway anytime, and she couldn't smell him. She can't tell the difference between him and somebody else. It says something about the female relationship with the male, that the assumption is that it's the female that cleans, and it's not that at all. So when you're looking at the openness, it's two kinds of promiscuity at the score. It's the ability to let go of any male and the ability to have any female. It's interesting to think about openness in that way. The way in which it's lived out, it is the as usual genetic combinations. I always describe that as the lovely blonde, blue-eyed, two-tronic, coming to Jamaica and ending up with a sort of milk-colored baby as a result. We end up with a brand new genetic combination. We can see that's something that profilates. I look at my own children. They got genes from all over the place. This is something that's proliferated. So understand the third line theme is also recognizing where not the divorce in and of itself come from, bonds made and broken, but where the lawyers come from to make money of it, and where the material separation becomes something that's a big deal. Now, the way in which men get women to bring them is that them claim the ownership. This is how they get women to die and clean them. The enshrined ownership tribally. If you get to any tribe, it's very, very rare to find any tribe in the world today that actually has a history, has a history, the rights of women, the rights of women to own property, the rights of women to vote. We won't talk about the Swiss. I think there are still cantons in Switzerland where women cannot vote. I think there are two cantons where they can't vote. In the Arab world, just thinking about the nature of divorce and all of these things. So this is the way that the male claim them, and you can see this in the third line. It says, this is all my property. The child is my property. I own the child. Children are chattel. They are chattel. This is one of the saddest things for me. If you murder your own child, is it less serious than murdering a stranger? This is insane. They're property. They have no rights. Children have no rights. Nobody protects them. Truly, nobody protects them. This is the Yang trip, which I know that the woman by her nature cling to me. Remember, it's simply the tribe way of seeing what logic and the abstract has already discovered. But the tribe, because of its support, because of the need for clue, has to figure out how to answer out the solution. The child being born, and then you come up with this whole property trip, and you end up with mummy as his thing. If you allow women to work in the exchange of energy, you give up your power as a male. Why do you think that women were kept away from the workforce and power and all those things? It was so that they couldn't exercise this power. Is that what I love so much about the story of Odysseus, Ulysses? There's Penelope, the archetype of the female. You take a man for every season. At the end of the and then at the end everybody eats them. And then you take another male for a year as your consort, as your lover. They may even have impregnated. Good, here be something else to bring into the royal whatever. But the father into the pot. Then Ulysses comes along and screws it all up. He refuses to die. He refuses to submit to the female authority. I mentioned before that for me, Homer was the first propagandist of male patriarchy. He's the one that established the Mediterranean culture, at least in the Mediterranean culture, the supremacy of the male. After all, he lied so much. He changed the value of the gods. He reduced goddesses to bring servants of the male forces. He changed everything. He changed the whole game. You find it all here in the 59.3. And whatever you find that in terms of this cross, whether quarter you're in, you have to see that this is really a deep part of that mix. Then we go to the 3-6. Again, we're dealing with the 3-6. Again, dealing with it in the context of the squatters being able to see stability in this and to be able to see the stability in many offspring, rarely a stable partner. These are fathers that have children with many women or women who have children with many women, and it's quite a common phenomenon, and yet they're all stable in that. As a matter of fact, these women who actually have children from many different men are closer to the true archetype of female than any of the other males that when you see the amount of a male impregnate two women of the Genghis Khan scale, they're neophytes. But if a woman has children from more than one end, she's actually in a very different than most women on this planet. As a matter of fact, in most cultures, women could ever do that, even today. And again, the stability comes from simply the acceptance of the failure of the partnership process. In other words, you can make a partnership work simply because you have children, and yet also to realize the beauty of having children, that the stability is having the children themselves, that the life can be made with the children. And of course, in this situation, you see the partners taking on multiple roles.